Hey guys, so today you and I are going to talk about mental exhaustion. So let's get into it. So the question in question is, Frederick, I am interested in becoming a computer programmer. I have a few questions though. Is it true that the software developer's life takes over and you come home mentally exhausted to the point where you can't really be bothered to do anything after work? Well, depending on your company, you might actually not have time to do anything after work because you're constantly having to work really late, and so your life kind of gets depends on you, of course, but your life can, if you don't have a backbone and you work in the wrong company, get reduced down to you literally going between the office and home, like you have no other time to do anything. Uh, that's a choice for a lot of people because a lot of companies don't force you to work overtime all the time, but some people do actually live that life. And as to mental exhaustion, I will say that sometimes sometimes you are definitely mentally exhausted. In the beginning of things, it's more likely that you may be there. It depends a little bit on person as well, because what I find at the very least is that in the beginning things take a bigger toll on you because you're nervous and because you're usually in, well, you don't have experience, and as a junior developer that's a very stressful situation because you're trying to prove yourself. You're constantly worried if you're going to get fired. You're constantly worried that your coworkers think you're bad or that you're not fast enough. You have all of these anxieties that go away, a lot of them at the very least, uh, over time, but you have to dance this dance as a beginner for a while, and nobody likes that. It's I mean, have you ever tried if you've ever tried to do anything where you have to put yourself a little bit out there and take some risks, that's not it's not usually not something that you enjoy at first, but after a little while it feels better and better, and then it feels pretty good because you go from not being able to do it all that well to actually being pretty good, or pretty good. I like to say that your self confidence is usually measured by the scale. And the scale is a subjective thing. It's just an internal like measurement that you have, that everybody has, which is super subjective, where you know roughly where you are in comparison to everybody else and where you want to be in comparison to where you are. And the higher up on the scale or the ladder, regardless of what it is, it can be looks, it can be fitness, it can be money, it can be social status, it can be anything. The higher up from your start point you go, the better you will feel about yourself. And whenever you try to get a new skill, you start very low on that scale, usually. Well, depends on the person, of course, and aptitudes and so forth. And that's exactly what you're going to go through. And in the beginning, yes, it might be very exhausting, but that doesn't necessarily mean that you're not going to have energy to do anything after work. Some days, I can even speak for myself, or I can only speak for myself, uh, you will be so tired that you have no energy afterwards. I highly recommend that if you're going to be a software developer, take your health very seriously. Try to remember now that if you work as a construction worker or you work in, say, logistics or anything where you have to move around a little bit, you're going to stimulate your body. And as a software developer, you basically sit on your ass all day, every day. You practically don't move. I would even go as far as to say you move less than the average office work. I mean, even people in sales, in many cases, move more than you do. You practically don't move from your desk from the day you get in, or from the moment you get in, unless you go to a meeting or something like that, of course. So for you, it is vital to exercise. I would even go as far as to say that I think software developers should spend more time in the gym and exercise than the average person, simply because you get below average stimulation. Most people, like in many different professions, they actually move around. They get natural exercise by just doing whatever it is that they do. You don't. So the mental exhaustion and feeling tired and so forth, it gets mitigated a lot if you do cardiovascular training and strength training and so forth. If you keep your body in decent shape, that will help a lot. It will also help with injuries and things like that, and you should absolutely do that. But sometimes, even if you do that, you will have these really mentally draining things. Like for me, an example is if I have been working on a story for way too long. Let's say it's been delayed a few times and there's been like last minute changes 3 or 4 times, and I just want to get the fucking thing out the door. It actually happened this week, like this last Friday. I was so happy to be able to just leave that fucking thing and go and have my let the weekend start and just recharge my batteries, because I was mentally drained by Friday, because I've been working on that thing for so long. It's super boring. It's like super problematic. A lot of things going on. A lot of context switching back and forth and issues and stuff like that. And finally, you just can mentally let go of the thing and relax. And that is very important. You need to recharge your batteries. And sometimes, even if you have worked for a while and you kind of on a normal day feel pretty good, like, because I mean, usually I don't, at least I don't feel all that drained after work. Uh, but even so, even if a normal day is fairly okay, you will have times where you feel this way for sure. So, what I want you to take away from this is that it is absolutely true that to a degree, the software developer's life can take over and start flowing into your personal life. You can make a choice and say that no, I'm not going to be one of those slave programmers who work all the time and always go do overtime and so forth. That is it's much easier to have that attitude in the beginning of things, because then you have market value and you have a bit of flexibility. If someone decides that, hey, you know what, we only hire people who work overtime all the time, because otherwise we'll fire you. So be ready for that. That in the beginning you might be in a situation where this does take over your life in a sense, not because it has to, but rather because you either don't have a choice or you're too scared to say anything about it. But apart from that, no, it doesn't take over your life unless you let it. That's what I'm trying to say. And the mental exhaustion and being tired after work, you mitigate most of that by making sure that you exercise. Make damn sure that you exercise. If you're going to be a software developer, you should spend at the very least a few days a week in the gym. At the very least. And if you do that, that will help a lot with your health. It will help with your overall mental state and exhaustion and so forth. But some days you need to unplug afterwards. You just want to go home and lie in bed, because it's been draining to work on a really tough story or something that's really, really boring but needs to get done. And we're all different. Some people really love some stuff that drains other people and vice versa. But you will have days like that. Have a great day.